If you're self-employed and you make $100,000 a year, how much house can you afford? Here's the thing nobody tells you. The answer depends less on how much you make, but rather how much you document. You could take two identical borrowers, both making $100,000 annually, and one of them will qualify for almost double the amount of house. Same income, same credit, but completely different results. In today's episode, we're going to cover the maximum amount you could be potentially approved for, what the lender's actually going to use for your income, and one of the biggest mistakes that could cost you over $100,000 in buying power. Let's get into it. I'm Ryan Marks, host of SEI Mortgage channel, and we are here to just put out great content for those of you who are self-employed or real estate investors looking to grow or build your portfolio. If you like us, please hit the like and subscribe button. We just try to put out great content for you. Without further ado, let's get into calculating some income if you are self-employed and you are making $100,000 annually. First, we have to talk about why 100K W-2 income is much different than 100K self-employed. If you're W-2'd, it's very straightforward. You're making $83.33 monthly. The lender is going to look at that gross number, divide it by 12, enter it in the computer, and call it a day. But if you're self-employed, that $100,000 could mean so many different things for the final number. And a lot of this has to do with the classic problem where a lot of you probably know where I'm headed. You're using a CPA to take advantage of the legal tax deductions that you're entitled, and once you get your gross adjusted net, meaning the number that is taxable to the IRS that you are going to potentially pay taxes on, is a much lower number. That is one of the many advantages of being self-employed and not having W-2 wages. The challenge is when you go to buy a house and you talk to us or someone on the team and we look at your tax returns and your Schedule C maybe, that number often is showing a lot less than what the gross revenue was that your company earned for the entire taxable year. So where does that leave you? Well, your buying power is essentially cut off. So let's look at the example of those two self-employed borrowers, both making $100,000 in gross income. However, one of these borrowers, after write-offs and deductions, is only reflecting $50,000 in gross adjusted net. Therefore, he is making $4,167 versus our other borrower who's making $8,333 a month in qualifying income. Using a max monthly payment of a 50% debt-to-income ratio for this example, our first borrower qualifies for a mortgage payment up to $4,167 versus our second borrower qualifies for a mortgage payment of $2,083. That means in our first borrower scenario with the larger qualifying income, he could purchase a home for up to $648,700 versus our second borrower whose maximum purchase price is restricted to around $314,300. So that means that the first borrower could get a loan amount up to $518,960 versus our second borrower of a loan amount of only $251,440. This is based on a 20% down payment using 1.25% rate of the purchase price for property taxes and an average of $125 a month in insurance. So you can clearly see from this example that it's not so much about how much you make annually, but rather how much of your income is actually qualified to use towards your maximum buying power. So once we take your gross income multiplied by the percentage, that's going to give us what your maximum monthly payment is that you're going to be approved for. And in addition to that, you have to remember that you have to take reoccurring expenses into that maximum debt to income equation. So a good rule of thumb is if it reports on credit, it counts against you. For example, your car payment, credit cards, student loans, anything that is a reoccurring monthly payment reporting on credit is counted against your debt to income ratio, not things like your utilities, your phone bill, or other monthly bills that may be recurring, but they are not reporting on credit. All of these amounts are added up in addition to your new mortgage payment divided by your qualifying income, which is going to give you your debt to income ratio. So from our example, if we had a maximum debt to income ratio of 50%, you can see how our first borrower was able to qualify for over double the amount of house as our secondary borrower example because they had a larger qualifying income. So the good news is if you're self-employed, there is more than one way to qualify for a house. There are four main paths that you could choose from no matter what your income type is. Path number one is your typical tax returns, reserved for conventional government loans, where we're going to take an average of 2 years of your income plus your year-to-date or 1 year income plus your year-to-date pay stubs and average to derive from your earnings. But if you're like myself and many other viewers watching this episode, tax returns are not a good vehicle for us to utilize in order to purchase a property. So the additional path is a bank statement loan instead of tax returns, which either uses 3, 6, 12, or 24 months of your deposits and applies what's called an expense factor divided by the max debt to income ratio and derives the income with your max purchase power from there. The third option is the 1099 income. And the fourth commonly used path for qualifying income is a profit and loss loan, where you will simply use an audited profit and loss, or in some instances a self-prepared P&L, where you will derive what your qualifying income is solely based from that profit and loss. All of these programs have a lot of different nuances with them, but this is simply just to give you an idea, if you're self-employed, what types of programs are out there and why it's important that you understand that your qualifying income is much different than your gross income that you've taken in, and each one of these programs has a different sort of ratio applied in order to derive the maximum amount of qualifying income we can, as close to your gross income amount that you've received through your business. So now that you understand the difference between gross income and qualifying income, it's also important to understand that even though you can qualify for up to potentially that 50% debt to income ratio, that doesn't always mean you should go there. It's very important that we have a conversation about the comfortability of your housing payment against your reoccurring expenses that don't report on credit, because there's that old saying, you don't want to be house poor. So keep that in mind if you're able to qualify for more house given your current income situation, that the payment is still comfortable for you, because unfortunately I cannot make that payment for you. Hopefully this video was helpful, and for other great tools and resources available on using a lot of our calculators or ways to get in touch with us, head over to seimortgage.com. We'd welcome the opportunity to connect with you if you're looking to purchase your first property as a self-employed borrower, or you're looking to further build your real estate portfolio. And until then, remember to let your income work smarter, not harder. We'll see you on the next one.